everyone, welcome back once again to I've Been Playing. Today we're taking a look at Dead Space Remake. Dead Space originally came out in 2008 and this remake just came out in January. There is another remake of a horror game that came out recently that hopefully I will get around to soon as well, but I'm just getting around to this one, so who knows? If you're not sure about the story, it follows Isaac Clarke, an engineer whose ship, I guess the entire ship, is going to the Ishimura to help fix something, I assume. I did pay attention, but I already forget. And once they get there, first of all they crash, so that's not a good sign. And second of all, it becomes obvious very quickly that things are not great on the ship, because necromorphs exist. And basically everyone's dead, and there's blood everywhere, and it's pretty horrible. They're not having a good time on the Ishimura. Isaac is also looking for his girlfriend, I believe Nicole, who was a doctor on the Ishimura, and he's understandably concerned, considering what's going on. So basically he has to kind of take over and deal with the necromorphs in order to try to repair the ship, keep it from crashing into the planet, because things have been turned off so that it's, like, slowly heading towards the planet and getting pelted by asteroids as well. Like, all sorts of stuff is broken down or just not functioning properly, or was turned off in some cases. And he's balancing that with trying to look for his girlfriend as well as try to get the crew of his original ship, which I don't know or remember the name of. Can't remember if they said it. They probably did, but I don't remember. Get them out safely as well, or help them all escape. Probably. There's a little bit of uncertainty there with one of them. Now, I did play the original Dead Space, but it's been probably at least a decade. I think I played it at least twice, but it's still been at least a decade. So while I'm remembering story beats and areas and things that happen in those areas when I get to them, I don't necessarily remember it well enough to do a direct comparison with this one. As far as I can tell, it's mostly the same. The story's the same. I don't think they've done anything in that department, other than maybe change some dialogue, but again, I wouldn't notice that. Gameplay is more or less how I remember it. I don't know if it is the same, but it feels roughly the same. The one thing that's different is I think there's a little more option for traveling back to areas you've been to before for side missions, which I also don't think the original had. No, it did, right? Because you followed the blue line to your main objective and the green line to your side objectives in the original, if I'm remembering that correctly. In any case, there are side missions in this one as well, and I feel like before, the tram just kind of took you where you needed to be for the main story. Again, I could be wrong, but I don't remember physically choosing which stop I want to go to. So that's something I think is a little different. Correct me if I'm wrong. It's been a while. Maybe should have revisited it before I played this one, but I just don't have time. I just don't have time. The thing I can talk about is the fact that this remake feels and looks very good. I haven't had any issues with it that aren't my own fault for being terrible at the game. It still has the line on the floor to tell you where to go, which honestly, more games need something like that. Unobtrusive waypoints. Love it. Again, you know, that's something that was in the original, so it's not something new to this one, but I appreciate it nonetheless. It looks good, it looks faithful to the original, it looks very much like you remember it looking, although much better, obviously. Considering how old it's getting at this point, the original, it doesn't look horrible, I don't think. Again, didn't revisit it, but, you know, it's definitely showing a bit of age, which makes me feel like doubly old. So it looks very nice, very shiny, very, very gory, like, very. I can't overstate how both impressive and disgusting it is that the necromorphs have, like, accurate body physics as you attack them. It's gross, but it's super fascinating. I don't know what that says about me. I like to think that it's because technology is able to do that now, not because I'm weird. But hey, make your own judgments. In other words, if you're not a fan of blood and gore, probably not going to be playing this anyway, but like it's over the top, so maybe not the best one for you. It feels very good to play. It is incredibly dark. The one thing, I get it, I get why it's so dark, but it is so dark. It is so dark. Like, I turned the brightness up so much, and I still can't see a damn thing. It's a little too dark, if anything. That's my one major complaint, is that it's a little too dark. Again, I get it, I get why, but it's excessive, and I can't be scared if I can't see things. I also talked about this in my Callisto Protocol video, but I never found the original Dead Space to be especially scary. Surprising, because they jump out of vents, yes. Scary, not so much. It's a little too action-oriented and a little too, again, over the top for me to find it scary per se. I'm having the same kind of reaction to this one. Again, I have been consuming horror media since I was like 5, so take that with a huge grain of salt, because I am so desensitized at this point that my opinion on whether something is scary or not is not a good basis to go off of. Essentially, this is just as good as you remember the original Dead Space being. It's a great way to revisit it. It's a great way to play it if you haven't gotten around to it. It has been a while. I imagine there are a significant number of people who didn't play it or haven't played it, so they could not have redone it better, I don't think. And I think it's probably even better to me because I played the Callisto Protocol, and while I'm fairly neutral towards that game as a whole, the ending bit was not good, but fairly neutral overall. It wasn't impressive. It felt like it kind of was ripping off Dead Space, but it definitely wasn't as good, and the fact that this one is really well done makes this one seem even more well done, and between the two, this is the one I'd definitely replay. Put it that way. So if you're a horror fan and don't mind all of the blood and guts and gore, and especially if you haven't played the original Dead Space, if you couldn't at the time, didn't at the time for whatever reason, and want to revisit it or visit it for the first time, this is the perfect way to do it. It's also not very long, unless maybe you do the side stuff. I am about halfway through, I think, a little over halfway, and I've played for a little over 4 hours, I want to say, if I remember correctly. It's not going to take you all that long, again, unless maybe you do the side stuff or replay it for collectibles and things like that. So, it's a recommend from me. And that's what I think of Dead Space. Let me know what you think of it down in the comments down below, and whether you've ever played it before or want to, or anything like that down in the comments, and I will see you in the next episode.